Wife has been using her annual girls' trip as an annual hall pass, part 2. It has been a long time since I last posted, but with as many people who offered support and advice, I felt I owed you all this 1-year update. I know everyone wanted me to just divorce and move on, and I would have loved to, but I also needed her to have consequences. It took me months of researching and planning, but when I was ready, I was going to make her pay for her callousness. I knew I couldn't do scorched earth. Between my state's laws, custody, the fact we both have good jobs, dumpster fire was going to be the best I could pull off. But you know what? Dumpster fire was good enough. I'll never forget the look on her face. When Gwen got back from her girls' trip, she tried to be her usual loving self, tried to initiate, tried to tell me about it, WTF. I played like a broken man while rejecting her. I slowly loosened up this facade, making it seem more and more like I was getting back to normal, and gradually allowed more of her affections. My whole goal was just for her to have a sense of security. I still remembered the threats she made right after D-Day. And I'll never forget her telling me I would be the loser in all of this no matter what. Well, I wasn't going to lose, she was. Her biggest flaw was complacency. She expected everything to just tick on as normal, and she was in way too much fog to even think I would pull the shit I did. My first plan was to hurt her financially. Not a ton I could do here, but I did empty our joint savings account. I then used that money to pay off my debts, notably the car that was in my name. I also hired myself a lawyer and got him to draft papers. Right at the end, I used a decent chunk to put a deposit and first months on a rental house. I figured timing everything up just right to ruin next year's girls' trip was ideal. Over the last year, I have been slowly collecting any and all evidence of infidelity I could on Scarlett, Dawn, and John. With the cat being out of the bag, my wife was so much more lax with her phone. Before, she was somewhat guarded with it, not suspiciously, as I always respected her privacy for the most part, but usually she was extra guarded in the months leading up to June. Now, since she thought I was so beaten down, I guess, she would just leave it laying around when she showered or slept. This allowed me to get screenshots, pics, and send them to myself. I discovered Scarlett wasn't just hall passing the girls' trip, she was having a full-on affair for years. The two guys I got enough to raise suspicion with a concerned spouse, especially if there were other red flags in the relationship. So we finally got to the week leading up to this year's girls' trip. She was going to leave on Friday. Unfortunately for her, on Wednesday, the foreclosure notice on the house came. She came up screaming at me, asking why I stopped paying the mortgage and how this is going to destroy our credit. I took that moment to remind her that it wasn't my house. My name wasn't on it. She should remember she's the one that pointed that out last year. Needless to say, she was extremely pissed. She was raving. She was extra pissed when she went to check the savings and found out it was empty. For a few moments there, she thought she was going to hit me. She probably would have had I not been filming this whole fiasco as it went down. The best part was she had to call her parents to cover the cost of stopping the foreclosure, which I found hilarious. She put her dad on speaker, who began ripping into me, talking about his name is still on it, and finally yelled, "Why the fuck would you do this?" I simply replied, "Because your daughter likes to fuck other guys." She screamed at me, "You are such a fucking asshole." She turned at that point and went out of the room to deny what I just said, which couldn't have been more convenient. I took the chaos as my cue to send the infidelity evidence I had collected to the other spouses. Feeling content in my efforts so far, I went ahead and scooped the twins up and headed for my mother's house. We had a nice time. Gwen was blowing my phone up about the house. It was unfortunate she figured out I had stopped paying on her car too. It likely would have gotten repoed any day. The craziest part was she just could not fathom why I would do this. Kept asking me, wasn't she good enough? How could I do this? Why am I being so cruel? When I finally responded, it was because I came to realize just how far gone she was. She was literally the definition believing your own bullshit. I told her, "You cheat on me every year. You were gonna do it again. Why would I stay with you? Why would I help you or support you? You have lost your goddamn mind." She fired back in all caps, "I do that for US." I finally had my clear admission of cheating. I turned my phone off for the rest of the night. I returned home after work the next day. She confronted me right at the door. I apparently ruined Scarlett's marriage. Samuel had left and told her he wanted a divorce. I guess she is especially fucked because they had a prenup, don't really know the details on that. Gwen had also gotten an angry and threatening call from Don's wife, so I guess everyone got my emails. Well, not totally sure, no word from John yet. She clearly wanted to fight with me when I got there, but I wasn't having it. I've had a year to process the loss of this marriage, I'm done. When I pulled out the divorce papers and served her, she melted into the floor, totally defeated. I had no comfort to give. I just gathered my go bag and returned to my mother's. That was a week ago. She has been begging me to come back, to work this out. She is finally promising to stop the girls' trip. But it's definitely too little too late. I got her together enough to work out a custody situation for the twins. That's really all that matters. As long as we can raise two decent humans, I'll be happy to co-parent. As for me, I feel like a new man. I got into the house while she was gone and got more things for my new house. I bought the twins new rooms with some money I had been setting aside to do so. The divorce will take time. I'm worried she will contest it, but I'll cross that bridge when it comes. For now, I'm just going to try and enjoy each day, and maybe plan a boys' trip. I can't believe 8 years have gone by. I had all but forgotten about my posts when I hit the Facebook Reels and a robot voice started reading my story to me. That got my feeling nostalgic, and I decided to give an update for you lifelong Redditors who might remember me. Donald's wife, Leslie, went absolutely nuclear. She was a psalm, and when she got my email, I guess it was the confirmation of her suspicions. After initially lashing out at Gwen, I guess she realized Don was the real villain in her story. She dug in at that point and found other affairs, as well as thousands of dollars spent on OnlyFans over the years. She got the right judge for her, and Don was ordered to pay alimony and child support. And if that wasn't enough, she then aired all of this on social media the second the divorce went final. It was quite entertaining. I have only the vaguest idea about what happened to John. Gwen told me all his socials went dark right after I messaged his wife. About 2 years ago, he popped up again on my friend's suggestions on Facebook. I clicked on his profile and he appeared to be single and living about 1,500 miles away. Scarlett was divorced immediately. She also cut out Gwen, blaming her for being found out. If they didn't have so many other mutual friends and acquaintances, I'd probably be in the dark, but instead have the whole pitiful story. Her prenup had an infidelity clause, so she was only entitled to a quarter of what would have been standard in a divorce. He also figured out who her AP was and outed him to his wife. That led to their divorce. Scarlett and the other guy apparently went official after this, and she ended up pregnant about a year in. Surprise, surprise, they are miserable. He still cheats, just now on her instead of with her. She has put on a lot of weight, and those mutual friends report she is just a shell of her former self, but won't leave because this has to work or it was all for nothing. Now to Gwen. She did try to contest the divorce at first, but that didn't last long and she signed off. The whole process took about 6 months. During that time, she continuously tried to get me to stop and reconcile. But the level of delusional she had shown alone was more than enough for me to never even consider doing that. While the twins have always said she was wonderful when they were with her, I know that when she was on her own, she ended up in a pretty self-destructive cycle, drinking and partying, that often ended in her contacting me to work things out. This hit a high point when Kate, my now wife, and I went official. One night she had too much to drink and drove, wrecked her car, and had several broken bones and required extensive physical therapy, in addition to the legal issues she was now in. The wreck did serve as wake-up call, and she finally started therapy. The therapy has been great for her, and she has actually dealt with her narcissistic behaviors and delusional ideals. It took a couple of years, but she actually genuinely apologized for her infidelity and recognized that she wasn't doing this for us. She has been great co-parent since, and we are pretty friendly with each other. Twin birthdays and event are often done together now without any drama. Gwen met a guy like 3 years ago, and they are in a poly relationship, which was the least shocking revelation I have ever had. They got married a year ago, but she still has her boyfriend of 2 years, And yes, sometimes all of these people are at the same event at the same time. I've learned to just roll with it. Her asshole dad, Gary, however, hasn't, and has essentially cut Gwen and twins out of his life. My former Emil wasn't having it and divorced the old bastard. He is now an angry, bitter, lonely old drunk. As for me, I'm doing great. Once the divorce went final, I had every intention of manwaring myself across the whole city. I got the abs, and matched quickly with a few women. I went out with Kate, now 37F, who was in a similar recent divorce situation and was looking to just enjoy some freedom. First date went great. She stayed the night at my place. Then we ended up spending the next day together. Then kept messaging through the week. She canceled a date with someone else so we could spend the next weekend together. I ended some conversations with the other women I'd matched with. Then we both dropped the apps. Next thing we knew, we have been in a relationship for almost 8 years, married for 6 of those with a 3-year-old daughter. So while our plans of playing the field didn't pan out, things still turned out pretty well. Don't know that I'll ever update again. Thanks once more to all those who read my story, offered advice and well wishes. Who would have ever thought that simply checking a bank account could cause at least 6 divorces, a poly relationship, and me being a 42-year-old toddler dad? But I guess that's life for you.